Hi, I'm the Rifter, and this is another photography tutorial. Last time we talked about how a camera works. This time, I'm going to teach you how to implement some of those principles. We talked about what an f-stop was and that the camera works off of reciprocity. So this time I went out in my backyard and took some photos. This is not going to be aesthetically pleasing photos. This is mainly just technical photos, just to kind of get you familiar with what these settings do to create a photo. So you can go out and experiment with this afterwards. I shot everything on manual. Most cameras are going to have that denotated on that little dial that has an M on it. M is for manual. It's going to let you set your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture manually. This is typically how I shoot all of my landscape photography. And if something doesn't look right, you can always make a few adjustments and then you can keep shooting. Alright, let's get started. So in this photo, I used a gray card to get the proper exposure for taking a picture of this tree. This is a gray card. What you do is you put your camera on spot metering. And I should have an illustration of the Canon view screen overlay. That circle in the center is where you would put this gray card. You want that circle directly over the gray card and you want it in even light. So those shadows I have on the card, you don't want the card to look like that. You want it to be one solid, you want one continuous light source on it. So if you're taking a photo of something in the shade, you're going to want shade on it. If you're taking a photo of something in the sunlight, you're going to want the whole card to be in sunlight. Having said that, I actually metered this back on the tree just so I could get this photo to come out properly. And I've put the card on the tree just to show you where I metered it. In this first photo, I'm shooting at an ISO of 100. Again, that's your film speed. It was shot at 1/60th of a second at an f4 aperture, or just a 4 aperture. I also was shooting at 18 millimeters, so that's the focal length of my lens. That's how wide of a shot I was taking. That we're really not going to focus on, but just as added information, that's what you're getting. So ISO 100, 1/60th of a second at f4. That is what this gray card told me to shoot at. And as you can see, the tree is perfectly exposed. That if you just wanted to take a photo of a tree and you just wanted the tree to be exposed properly, that would be it. Now, as you can tell over on the left side of the screen in the sky, how all these highlights are blown out. It's like almost completely white. That dude's house is kind of blown out, and on the fence there's some real light spots. This is not the proper exposure for that house. So if I was taking a photo of that house, I would actually take that gray card out and meter that in the sunlight, and then that would actually come out correctly. But let's see what happens when we change some of these settings so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. In this photo, I stopped down one whole stop. So basically what that means is I've taken 3 clicks. So my camera does third stop increments. So 3 clicks, on your camera it'll be different, but I think mine was to the right. But it takes it from 1/60th of a second to 1/25th of a second. It's a much faster shutter speed and it cuts more light. As you can see, all the other settings are the same. Now the house in the background is actually starting to look a little bit better. The tree's a little bit darker. This is actually how I probably would take this photo if I wanted to get those as close as possible. Like the tree and the house. That's how I would have taken it if I wanted to get this tonal range as close as possible. But sometimes in photography, you're not that lucky to have that situation happen, and you have to make a decision. Do I want the tree to be well exposed, or do I want the house to be well exposed? In the next photo, I took this one at 1/250th of a second at f4 at a film speed of 100. So as you can tell, the tree is extremely dark. This is stopping down 2 whole stops. And as you can tell, the background is really well exposed. In fact, this is almost the perfect exposure to get something in the sunlight to come out well exposed. Pretty simple. Now we're moving on to depth of field. In this photo, I wanted to show you that you can use different settings, but still get the same result. Now you're not going to notice it in this photo as much, but I've changed the depth of field. I shot at 1/15th of a second at f8. Still using ISO 100, and the reason I'm using ISO 100 is because that produces the smoothest photos. There's not a lot of grain. In a lot of my photos, I don't want a lot of grain. So I metered my card while I was on f8, and it told me that 1/15th of a second was the proper exposure, and of course it was right. You just have to find that happy medium between your shutter speed, your aperture, and your film speed. Now this time, what I've done is I've actually increased my film speed to 800 so I could get a clear shot, because this was kind of a shady area and I didn't want anything blurry while I was trying to get these things in focus to show you about depth of field. So I took this photo at f4 at 1/500th of a second. The film speed is 800, and as you can tell, I metered my gray card right where that big blurry leaf is. I forgot to take a photo because I'm not going to poke a hole in my gray card to hang it from the tree so you guys can see it. You guys can imagine that I have metered the gray card. So I focused on the fence, and you can see that the leaves in front are blurry. That is at f4. That's a very shallow depth of field. So now if I make my adjustment to f22 and shoot at 1/20th of a second, basically if you do the clicks and the math, it's the same ratio between your shutter speed and your aperture, but as you can tell, that focus has come all the way back to my camera lens. I think f22 on my camera is the maximum number aperture I can use, which the maximum number is the smallest opening inside your camera. And just to show you guys the difference, I'm not going to show you my meter readings, but just in case you want to know, I'm shooting at 1/640th of a second at f4 and ISO 800. Now I focused right on the leaf, and as you can tell, the leaf's in pretty sharp focus. The wind was blowing, and I think it may have blurred a little, but the background is out of focus, or some photographers may call it bokeh, and that's the aesthetically pleasing blurriness of the photo in the background. But as you can tell, the leaf's in focus, and everything behind it is out of focus. Now, at a point, some stuff towards me would be out of focus as well, but that's as close as I could get with my lens at 18 millimeters. I could have zoomed in a lot closer to it, but you guys really wouldn't have gotten the concept of depth of field with me zooming in so close. Alright guys, well thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something today. I hope this photography series is actually teaching you something and you are actually getting something out of it. If not, or if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I will do my best to answer whatever you have to ask. Please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Bye.